Hello students, an introduction to statistics at Salt Lake Community College. This video will give you a brief overview of what you need to do for the first part of the tuberculosis data project. Before I get into the specific details of the project itself, I want you to keep in mind that you should not include the directions as part of your submission for the project. These projects are supposed to be your own with your information. You may reword what are in the directions if you would like, but you need to explain to the reader clearly what is being done in each part of the project. With that said, let's look at the specific directions here. For Section A talks about that you will be gathering information from 10 countries from the World Health Organization. If you happen to click this link that is available on the page, you will find that you have a document that lists the 194 countries of the World Health Organization. However, you need to gather a random sample from this list. To do so, there are a few ways you can gather a random sample. What we tend to suggest, however, is to use GeoGebra, as we can use a process that is outlined in class. The process that is shown in class is something called random between. If you type in random between into GeoGebra here and select the first option for minimum integer and maximum integer, this can let you select a country from the 194 available by putting 1 as the minimum integer and 194 as the maximum integer. If you run this will give you a number to look up, and you can go to the list and find which country that would refer to. Since you need 10 such countries, we recommend either run this program again on another line, or you can go to the program and hit enter on it one more time, and you can get another randomized value. Keep in mind that if you somehow get to the same random number that you've already generated, just run the program one more time. That is what you will be doing for the first part of the project, selecting 10 countries from a random sample. Make sure that you explain to the reader what random sample process you are doing and explain to them clearly what you are using in order to do that random process. For Section B, you will then go to the tuberculosis profile available for the World Health Organization. If you click on this link, it will navigate you to the tuberculosis profile page, for which at the top there is a drop-down menu that you can use to look up whatever country you have selected as part of your group. Let's say, for example, I have selected the country Australia. If I select Australia here, the data will update here for Australia's information. You will need to gather a few pieces of information for Section B. The 3 pieces of information you need to gather are in the data tables available for each country. The first piece of information you need is for the total TB incidence, available here under estimates of TB burden. Specifically, we want the number under the rate per 100,000 population column. That means for Australia, I would report their total TB incidence as 6.2. You do not need to worry about the values in parentheses next to that or the column that says number. You just want this value here for total TB incidence. You will report 2 more values as well, but those are available lower on the page. If we scroll down on this page until we get to the section that is labeled treatment success rate and cohort size, the 2 values that we want from that are in the first row for people with new or relapsed case of TB started on treatment for tuberculosis. You will want the success rate listed here in the success column as 86%, and you will also want the cohort size listed here under the column for cohort. For Australia would be 1,187. That is how many people we have. You will want each of those values for each of the 10 countries you have selected, and then you will want to format those nicely into a table, something that looks kind of like this. If you have trouble creating a table, I will show you very quickly how to do that both in Word and in Google Docs. In Microsoft Word, if you go to the Insert tab near the top of Word, you will find an option here to create a table. When you click on that, you can designate how large you want the table to be, how many columns and how many rows. For example, I want 4 columns, and I eventually want technically 11 rows. This does not let me select 11 rows initially, but you can either right-click on any cell and go up to Insert and add more rows as you would like, or you can also just hit Tab at the end of the table to create more rows. If you are working in Google Docs, you can go to a Google document here, and very similar, go to the Insert section, and you'll find Table as one of the options there. This is a little bit more flexible in creating a table of whatever size you like. If you want something that has 4 columns and 11 rows, you can go up to 4 and then hover down until you have a 4 by 11 table. Once you have this table made, you can then insert all the information you need, such as country, total TB incidence, success rate, and cohort size. This can also be where you can list all of your countries, say for example Australia. Let's say I also had Jamaica and whatever other countries I had in my sample. You can then input each of the values there in the table for each country. Okay. For the third section here, section C, you are then going to look at one of the members of the WHO you selected, not all 10, just one of them, but make sure it is not the first member in your list. Then, for that member, you are going to identify a specific bar chart that is available in the TB profile page. If you go back to the TB profile page for your country, whichever one you happen to select, under the Charts section, you are going to scroll down until you see this bar chart here that is titled Estimated and Reported Number of TB Cases by Age, Group, and Sex. You will need to do a couple things for this. What you're going to need to do is first include a snippet of the graph itself. We show you with a separate video available on the instruction page how to take a snippet if you need help with that. Then you are going to need to take and estimate a few proportions. To do so, you need to find, say for example, the most number of cases for females. Well, females here is the left section here that is highlighted in blue. The most happens to be this bar for 25 to 34, that is the furthest stretching to the left. If you actually hover over that bar itself, it will tell you how many individuals are in that bar. Here it tells me that I have 220 people. If I need to make a relative frequency for that though, that would be 220 people out of the total, and you can find the total by adding up all of these columns. So for example, Australia here would be 25, 91, 194, 116, and add up all of these together, and that would be your overall total for females. You could do something very similar for the males as well. Lastly, for section D, you are going to conduct a hypothesis test. The goal of the hypothesis test is to look at the first country in your list, not the same as the country you did in section C, and to judge them based on the global threshold for tuberculosis treatment. That global threshold is 85%. We are going to see if their tuberculosis rate is different than that global threshold. To do so, you will need to do a few things. First, make sure to explain to the reader what the goal of the hypothesis test is in context to your chosen country. Second, explicitly state the hypotheses that are being tested, and you can see those listed here below. In order to recreate these, I will show you how to do that both in Word and in Google Docs. In Word, you can go to a new line, go to the Insert tab, just like we did for the table. And on the far right side, there should be an option for Equation. Once you have that selected, you can then try to recreate that equation by creating the null hypothesis H with a subscript of 0. I'll say subscript of 0, that underscore. When I hit space afterward, it will automatically adjust. Then I can put in the colon and then follow that by P equals 0.85. You can also do the exact same thing to recreate the alternative hypothesis. H with a subscript of A, space to move that into the subscript, colon, P, and then I need a not equal to sign. There's a few ways to access that not equal to sign. You may see it up here available in the symbols section. You can hit this not equal to symbol. Or if you're in Word, you can also try hitting \NEQ, which stands for not equal to, and then hit space, followed again by 0.85. In order to create these equations in Google Documents, again, go to a new line, and just like with the table, go to Insert, but then scroll down to the Equation option. This is where you can type in your equation, just like I did with Word. In order to access the not equal to sign, however, up here you'll find the Relations option, and in that Relations option you can find the not equal to sign. Once you have those created, you will then also need to choose a level of alpha that you would feel would be appropriate for this hypothesis test. Remember that alpha is the value that we use to compare and use the p-value. So choose a level of alpha before you compute the p-value. Then you are going to take a screenshot of your dot plot from Rossmann Chance. This Rossmann Chance applet is available with this link here. And if you open that applet, you can plug in for this problem here, the probability of heads as our null value in the null hypothesis, 0.85. The number of tosses, we're going to use 100, simulating there's 100 individuals in each of these simulations. And then for the number of samples, we'll use 50. We're running 50 simulations. I will turn off the show animation, and I can draw samples. You will then need to compute a p-value for your chosen country. If you remember from earlier, my chosen country of Australia had an 86% success rate. So down here in the count samples, I will put 86 and hit count. Currently, this is going in one direction. We want to do a two-sided test since we're using a not equal to sign in the alternative hypothesis. So if I click the two-sided option, this will compute my two-sided p-value here as 0.94. Make sure you identify explicitly to the reader what the p-value is, as the reader may not know how to read a Rossmann Chance output. So make sure you identify the p-value, and just like with the bar graph, take a picture of this dot plot output and include that in your project. Then, once you have your p-value, you should be able to compare that to alpha and make an appropriate conclusion for the hypothesis test. Try to keep in mind whether the p-value is less than or greater than alpha and what kind of conclusion that would be. I hope that this helps you complete the first part of the tuberculosis data project.